You're back here again with Kevin and Andre on Midnight's Edge, and right now we're going to be talking about the recent developments for The Punisher appearing on Netflix's Daredevil. So the first article we have here is talking about Joe Quesada being briefly interviewed at this year's San Diego Comic-Con. He says sparks will fly between Daredevil and Punisher in Season 2. And I guess that cracks me up a little bit because maybe it's just kind of a American or English idiom, but when you say sparks will fly between somebody, the first thing I think of is romance. So I'm picturing Daredevil and Punisher maybe cuddling in a quiet restaurant somewhere.
Yeah, I don't get that image, or at least I didn't get it until you put it in my mind. Thank you very much.
Sure.
So... But I think that must be a native English-speaking idiom, because for me, what I imagined or used to imagine, again before you put the images in my mind, was then you have two bars of metal or two swords or whatever striking at each other really, really hard. That is no doubt what Quesada tried to give the image of, and it worked with me until you changed my mind.
So at least what I get to be the point of this article is that Joe Quesada, big Marvel insider, obviously basically runs that business, the comic side. He's giving his seal of approval to what they're doing with Punisher and Daredevil, which part of me is I'm not 100% sure Joe Quesada is the biggest Punisher fan in the world, because if he was, I'm sure we'd be getting more focus on the Punisher comic, and we wouldn't wind up with the situation we have for basically the last 18 months, where Nathan Edmondson has just kind of produced a very boring, safe, uninteresting version of the Punisher, which is, you get some action scenes here and there, but it's kind of boring. So I'm not sure Joe Quesada's take on it is necessarily going to be the important one. What do you think?
Well, I think luckily he's not the one who decides what is happening on Netflix, because the people who have done the season 1 of Daredevil so far, they've done amazing. And if those people are, well, we know it's not exactly the same people, but it should be the same passion. It's like the same overseers that are still there, making sure season 2 will be up to scratch, and they are the ones who call the shots. And I think that Quesada probably would say it was fine whatever they were doing. I agree with you. He's not really an authority, because even before this Edmondson series, we just had like one incarnation of the Punisher after another, with very little continuity extending more than a year at the most before it was kind of scrapped and started over. I agree, he's probably not the biggest fan, but he doesn't need to be in this one case. He gives a stamp of approval, which is cool, but I honestly wouldn't expect otherwise. But what I find reassuring is seeing what they did with season 1 of Daredevil and how they nailed that. And if they can bring that into season 2, then I'm confident. And if Quesada gives his mandatory seal of approval, then yeah, cool.
The next piece of information that we've got is that Stephen DeKnight has come forward to say that Daredevil finally features the Marvel version of the Punisher, which I take to mean he's saying that this isn't going to be like the Lionsgate or Artisan or third-party film version of the Punisher, where we just kind of put a grumpy-looking guy in a leather jacket and have him shoot a bunch of bad guys and call it the Punisher. This is really going to reach more into the lore of the character, or at least the proper, very specific tone of the character. Because Punisher fans will tell you, even as close as the movies get that we've gotten, as much as they may have the broad strokes of the Punisher, there's details that are kind of missing, and a Punisher fan can just see those missing and feel it in their heart, it's important.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I'm very happy just to hear him say that. Of course, it's obvious. We've never had the proper Marvel Punisher before, even if we've partially come close. And then I think about Ray Stevenson in particular. Say what you want about the rest of the movie Punisher Warzone. There were many things that were wrong with that. But Ray Stevenson's portrayal was, for the most part, spot on, because it got the lore right, it got his origin and background right, and it mostly got his personality right. So if this new series can take those things that Punisher Warzone got right and take it even further, really get into the the personality of Frank Castle, and I'm very happy with that. However, there is one thing to be said though, because it says here this is the first proper Marvel Punisher. But what is the proper Marvel Punisher? Because every Punisher ever published by Marvel can be construed as the proper Marvel Punisher, but there have been so many different incarnations of the Punisher there as well. Of course, we have the one we're the most used to, which for most is either going to be the Garth Ennis Punisher or the earlier 80s, 90s regular series Punisher.
Right, like the Mike Baron Punisher.
Exactly, the Mike Baron Punisher. But you also have the Punisher series from 1995, where he was aiding the Mafia.
Right, that's the John Ostrander version.
Exactly. And you also have the series where he was an angel or zombie angel, or the Frankencastle series. All of these are Punisher 2. At least they claim to be at the time.
Just threw up in my mouth a little. Fucking Rick Remender. Jesus.
Yeah, that was pretty awful. But anyway, hopefully what we're going to see is something, I think a mix of the Mike Baron Punisher and Garth Ennis Punisher would be spot on, and hopefully that is what they are referring to. I would be surprised if it was anything else, because it's like those two put together that kind of make up the quintessential Punisher, at least in my mind. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that that's what I would like it to mean, because, you know, I think Marvel doesn't probably want to stray too far from the 616 Punisher, you know, like the classic comics Punisher. But at the same time, I think they've got to recognize that on screen, they're going to need a take that at least outwardly appears to be a little more realistic. And I think that's where Max enters perfectly. So if you were to, kind of blend the Max version and maybe take some cues from the Year One version, or, you know, even the Mike Baron version, kind of push them together, I think that's about right.
They can't really go wrong with that, because all of those different takes, they are so compatible, and they just build upon each other so perfectly.
Well, it's interesting that earlier you had mentioned Warzone, maybe some of that coming from Warzone into the Netflix show, into Daredevil. One thing that this article references is talking about the Lexi Alexander R-rated Punisher Warzone, and this was brought up with Steven DeKnight, that what they wanted to know if it would be as graphically violent as Punisher Warzone. What DeKnight says specifically is that he's doubtful, because that was pretty violent. He goes on to assert that while the first season of Daredevil was violent, it was a lot of implied violence, you know, like mentally you knew the violence was occurring, but maybe not as perhaps brutal as some might have implied. And he kind of actually redoubles on his assertion that the show is PG-16, which is that, you know, it's not something for adults only, but yeah, it's pretty serious.
I think many might freak out from those comments, and with no real reason. Because when I saw season 1 of Daredevil, I was actually surprised by how violent it was. Because yeah, it's true, most of that violence is implied, but it was implied in such a way that it became more brutal and aggressive than it otherwise would have been. We've seen that in some other movies, where you have like these shots that initially were like very brutal and graphic, but almost a little bit over the top, and then they were forced to cut back a little bit for rating reasons, and then you lose some of the excessive gore, but you are left with a greater impact. And for instance, this scene where Wilson Fisk crushes the guy's head in the door.
Oh yeah.
We don't see so much. What we see is basically, we see the camera is filming from the point of view behind the car, filming under the wheels, and we see like blood is running down, pieces of brain matter is coming down as he is smashing the door. We do not see his head being crushed. We only see the effects of it. We see pieces of head running down. And then we see the decapitated body fall to the ground, which is still pretty graphic. So we don't see the head being crushed, but we see the decapitated body remaining. And that just made for something, I think, so much more powerful than if we had seen the doors slamming into the heads over and over. And I think that's what they're going to do here. It's going to be really brutal. I don't doubt that for a second, but it's not going to be as excessively gory as Warzone, but ultimately more efficient for it.
I actually agree with you. The thing to remember about Daredevil is, for all the things that we might like it to be, which is, some kind of superhero extravaganza or some kind of brutal beatdown gore fest, really what they excelled at during the first season was making it a drama. And sure, it had those elements of violence. They were important to the show, to the tone, but really when it comes down to it, it's a drama. So I think what people should expect, that this is a drama with the Punisher. And of course, you can't exclude that he's going to walk in and, at some point shoot 6 guys and just kind of nonchalantly blow his gun off, so to speak. I don't mean that in the literal sense, just kind of in the thematic sense. But, we're going to see a drama featuring the Punisher, and I think that's actually going to be pretty good, since Marvel has shown they know how to do that.
The gore shouldn't be the forefront of the story. You need the story first and foremost, and then the gore and brutality needs to enhance the story, not the other way around. And that was what they did with season 1 of Daredevil. When you had some gore, it was used sparingly but very effective, so it became all the more shocking when it was there, more powerful. Like, for instance, when Stick chopped the guy's hand off and you had like the bleeding stump there. That was something really unexpected, and something that would that looked more painful there than it would in a movie where you kind of become desensitized.
Right, where you see see 8 hands being chopped off as opposed to just the one.
Exactly.
I think they're going to do it right, and I know this might alarm some people who are kind of hoping for a Schwarzenegger shoot-'em-up, but I think what we're going to get is going to be better. I think it's going to be more sincere.
I think we're still going to get the Schwarzenegger shoot-'em-up, only handed seriously and without the camp.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's you can't really extract that from an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, can you? Though the camp.
Probably not. But,
yeah. So, but I agree with you 100%. This is going to be like a good, serious version of something that may resemble that.
And the best of all is that we're still going to get the shots of blood, because if this was a PG-13 movie Punisher with no blood at all, of course, then I'd have an issue. There's no way that would pass.
So the next piece of news, or probably in some part speculation, because nobody knows for sure what's going to happen right now, is that Punisher, and this is of course what lots of people have wanted to hear, is that Punisher could get his own Netflix series. This was at the Television Critics Association press tour that Netflix is doing. And they're out there talking about Jessica Jones, because that's the next thing we're going to see from Netflix, which we're going to get at the 4th quarter of this year sometime. Chief Content Officer Ted Sarandos said, specifically, Netflix's plan is to release a new Marvel series every 6 months. Which is, hey, that business-wise, that's pretty exciting for them. I mean, normally they're used to maybe doing a movie, maybe they can do one every 6 months, but it's not constant, like at some point there's going to be a year between Marvel movies. They're leading into the Defenders, which is going to have Daredevil, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones. So one thing they asked him, is it going to be possible for Punisher to get his own Netflix series now that he's going to be on Daredevil? The reply to that was that, yes, anything is possible. He went on to say that the beauty of the Marvel universe is that any one of these characters could be spun off. But of course, with the Punisher being referenced there, that's easily for me the most exciting part of that.
And so it is for me, and I think pretty much everyone else. That's something that I'm really happy about, because that's what the media and all the commentators latch onto, which is really gratifying to see, is that Punisher series might be coming, give us Punisher. And like Jessica Jones and whatever, so it's like, yeah, whatever, that's there too. But give us Punisher. People are really demanding, first the Punisher to be in Daredevil, and secondly for him to have his own series. So yeah, I think it's almost a sure thing. It's going to happen. People have been asking about it for so long, and people are so enthusiastic about it. So depending on how he is received in season 2 of Daredevil, I think we're going to have a Punisher standalone series announcement shortly after season 2 of Daredevil airs.
It's just so interesting, I mean, people, this kind of enthusiasm was sort of missing for the movies. I mean, I would just wonder if Punisher is the kind of carries with him the right size story for TV rather than for a movie, and people know that. That's
something I'm almost so surprised by, because with the movies, so few showed up and so few showed any interest. But now with Netflix Daredevil, like that anticipation and demand for the Punisher has just been building and building, and now suddenly everyone is a Punisher fan. And all the commenters, everyone is like just begging for a series, and it's so gratifying to see. We're finally, after long last, after decades, we're going to get the Punisher we've always wanted.
At least for sure, one solid decade, like no question, of people wanting an HBO style Punisher. I mean, that's something I can remember for such a long time. It's just people wanting that one specific thing, nothing but that.
Yeah, I remember that even before the 2004 movie was announced, that people were like saying Punisher, HBO, Punisher. That was like the catchphrase that just went hand in hand. That's what everyone always wanted. And I agree with that, because both the Punisher and Daredevil are street level heroes, and their stories simply lend themselves better to the small screen format than they do the big screen.
One of the other things that had been coupled along with these reports we've seen recently is that Marvel may also want to spin any one of these Netflix properties into its own movie. Maybe that would be another place they could go with Punisher. How would you feel if instead of a TV series, Marvel opted to push Punisher, like the Jon Bernthal Punisher, into a movie?
Can we have both? I'd be very happy with it if we get both. That if we first get him introduced in Daredevil, which we know is going to happen, then give him his own series and give him like 5, 6, 7 seasons, and then after that give us some more high-end movies. Begin with Welcome Back Frank, proper movie adaptation, and then follow that with Slavers and some of the more epic storylines. So yeah, I'd be very happy with that. Provided, of course, they do it and we get the series first.
It's tough. I want the TV series more than anything, too. But at least if we didn't get the TV series, it would be Marvel doing the movie. I mean, that's definitely a step up from having like a third party that just kind of wants the obligatory cash cow.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I'll take it from Marvel more than I would anyone else. That is one thing. But even from Marvel, I'd rather have it in a Netflix TV series than one movie every 5 years or so. Because, face it, Punisher on film is not going to be a huge priority, because they're going to be stretched with their main Avengers and cosmic film universes anyway. Unless they outsourced it to Touchstone or one of the other Disney companies that actually do R-rated movies. I'd be happy with that, but to play it safe, I'd vote for stay on Netflix. With guest appearances in the movies. I'd be all for a guest appearance.
Yeah, that'd be totally rad to see him up there with the Avengers, but I dare not dream so big.
Well, I wouldn't actually want to see him team up with the Avengers.
Oh, no,
but
no.
But for instance, taking out a villain that got out of Captain America's grasp.
Yeah, that would be
in a
cool
post-credit scene or something. That would be cool. Like, for instance, that scene towards the end of Blade 2, where you have like this vampire that he let go in the beginning of the movie, and then the last scene of the movie is him finding this vampire, telling him, "You didn't think I forgot about you," and then kill him.
Right.
Having that kind of thing with the Punisher would be great.
So this other big piece of news that has come out, this might be more in the rumor category because it's actually kind of unofficial. According to a new report by That Hashtag Show, Marvel might be working on a phase 2 of Netflix stuff. That one of these things they may be developing for phase 2 of Netflix is Thunderbolts show, which, for people unfamiliar, Thunderbolts classically is it's kind of like Suicide Squad. It's a team of bad guys kind of being wrangled up to do good things, to perform dangerous missions, and the most recent incarnation of Thunderbolts actually featured anti-heroes rather than just a group of thugs and criminals. So you had Frank Castle, of course, the Punisher right up front. You had Elektra, you had Red Hulk, Venom, and Deadpool.
And you also had the leader, and Ghost Rider came in later.
That raises some interesting questions if they're talking about a Thunderbolt show. They obviously can't use Deadpool because that property belongs to Fox right now. I think they probably could not use the name Venom specifically because that's with Sony, unless they could work out some kind of cooperation thing with them, which I guess we can have hope for that at least, right?
Yeah, I think that they could if they wanted to, because of this deal with Sony they have going on right now. I even think Sony might be eager to have that done, but I'm not sure Marvel would want it, that they'd want to have that kind of commitment to Sony outside of the Spider-Man and main Marvel movies. So I think Marvel would probably be more interested in replacing him with another kind of comparable character. And they have plenty to choose from.
That's part of what I see here too, is that you've got Thunderbolts is almost more of an idea than it is like a particular set of characters. Like it's the idea that you can just pull all these kind of second tier characters together that people like individually, but might really work more interestingly as a team and kind of put them all together. So it doesn't have to even be anybody who's been in the Thunderbolts in the past. Like I know we've seen Norman Osborn has been attached to it at some point. Bullseye's been attached to it at some point. What's really important is that they can pull any character they want to into an ensemble show.
I think that if there is truth to this report, and honestly I have no doubt that it is, then Marvel would probably do the same thing that they did with Guardians of the Galaxy, which is there you've also had several different teams with that name throughout the years, and in the movie they did kind of a best of. They used the most recent incarnation but with some appearances from the older team as well, and I think that's what they would do with a potential Thunderbolts series, that they just pick and choose which characters would best suit the story they're telling. So I don't think we would definitely not get Deadpool, probably wouldn't get Venom, but we might get some other characters. The obvious ones would be the Punisher and Elektra, maybe even Bullseye. Provided he survives season 2 of Daredevil, that's not a given.
Punisher and Elektra would definitely be the linchpin of any show like that. That would have to be like their two frontmen, or frontman and front woman, I suppose.
That's what would make me interested, because I have no interest in any other incarnation of the Thunderbolts. Never had, I'm never going to get it, but that one series with the Punisher at the forefront, I really enjoyed it. Not just because it's the Punisher and I'm a Punisher fan, but I thought it was fun. I know opinions are mixed, but I really liked that run.
I liked elements of it, but I think that especially when they switched writers for the umpteenth time, it was not going to work out.
The parts of it that worked, they really worked, especially like this banter and the triangle between Deadpool and the Punisher and Elektra. That made the whole series to me. Everything else was like circumstantial, but especially the banter between Deadpool and the Punisher. So it's really a shame that Marvel haven't got him.
In any event, as we find out more about a potential Thunderbolt show, we'll definitely keep you informed here at Midnight's Edge. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit subscribe so you can catch all of our upcoming videos. For more podcasts, news, and reviews, check us out at midnightsedge.net and follow us on Twitter at Midnight's Edge. Also check out our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/midnightsedge.